Live from WTOC, the Southeast News leader. The News Now starts on WTOC Plus.
I'd like to thank you all for joining us this afternoon for the news on WTOC Plus. I'm digital anchor Jude Binkley. Today, Georgia Governor Brian Kemp declared a state of emergency ahead of this week's incoming winter storm. And right now, state transportation crews are out across Georgia preparing roads and highways. Niamani Watson with our sister station is at a Georgia Department of Transportation facility showing us the steps it takes to keep the roadways safe.
We've seen crews here all morning long mixing brine, filling up trucks and heading out on the roadways. We've also spoke with shoppers. They're preparing too for yet another weekend winter storm. Gallons of brine leave the GDOT Maintenance Activities Facility by the truckload as crews work to keep roads safe and passable this weekend. GDOT says it's ready with 570 snow removal trucks and replenished nearly 2 million gallons of brine statewide.
So we've been brining since last night.
Right now, up to 3 inches of snow is expected across metro Atlanta on Saturday. Natalie Dale with GDOT says how they prepared for last weekend's ice storm is different from preparing for a snowstorm. They also expect this weather system to be more widespread.
There's a very little portion of the state that is not scheduled to have some impacts from this. Because of that, that means our crews are spread into different areas throughout the state. We've had to put down different materials ahead of snow.
Meanwhile, some shoppers spent the morning stocking up on groceries to hunker down for yet another weekend.
Bread, milk, snacks and things of this nature.
Cliff Odom, who lives in Forest Park, says last weekend's ice storm was not as bad as he expected.
We had a lot of ice at the house, and fortunately we didn't have no limbs down or nothing, so I feel like we were spared.
Still, he says he plans to stay home again and hopes to make the best of this winter storm.
We're hoping that there's a little bit of accumulation here to go out and play in.
And if you don't have to be out this weekend, try to stay off the roadways as much as possible. Dale says during the peak of the ice storm last weekend, traffic was reduced by 80%, and that really allowed crews to head out and do their jobs. Reporting from Forest Park, I'm Niamani Watson, Atlanta News First.
And we do want to note that tomorrow we will be increasing our weekend coverage right here at WTOC at the top of the hour, every hour from 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. We will be doing snow updates right here on WTOC Plus and the WTOC Facebook page. You can watch those live. We will be bringing in our meteorologists as we lead up to the expected snowfall, and then we'll have plenty of reporters out in the crew looking at snow impacts from across the region as well. So we're going to really be trying wall-to-wall coverage tomorrow to keep you all informed as much as we can as we continue to track this incoming winter storm. And sticking in the storm news, people in the Low Country are finding ways to prep for the possible winter storm coming into the area this weekend as well. Several people visited hardware stores yesterday in preparation for the weather. Our crews visited one in Bluffton. They were searching for faucet covers and plant blankets to keep important items around their home warm. Other people were buying sand and salt to use to melt the ice and snow if it decides to visit. One person tells us he isn't worried about the snow, but he is worried about the ice. He recommends that everyone take the same precautions.
My best advice as a retired police officer of 30 years is for people to stay at home. Load up on the essentials and get a good book, movie, etc., and stay at home.
Yep, I'm right there with him. I just picked up a copy of the Gaston Leroux Phantom of the Opera book. I'll be reading it when I'm not here at the WTOC Plus studio. Beaufort, Jasper, and Hampton counties say they're currently monitoring the system and creating plans that will be used if the needs arise. Turning now to state news, Georgia representatives are introducing 2 new bills to stop HOAs from taking homes. Anastasia Almos with our sister station has an investigation that reveals thousands of homeowners face the possibility of losing their homes under current Georgia law, and these bills would make that illegal.
Tell you the truth, your series on this issue has put a lot of heat in this house.
Georgia representatives are introducing 2 HOA oversight bills, crediting Atlanta News First Investigates series HOA nightmares for putting heat in the house.
Your story has helped us flesh out the real need.
The series unveils the grim reality for many Georgia homeowners. They face thousands in fines for minor violations like not pressure washing homes, leaning mailboxes, or faded shutters. Current Georgia law allows an HOA to place liens on homes for unpaid fees and even file to foreclose when that lien exceeds $2,000. And there's no state agency that oversees an HOA board's actions.
An HOA could be so strong and could just literally tear a home down. A home, a neighborhood, your property. This is our retirement.
House Reps Sandra Scott, Kim Schofield, and Viola Davis are leading the charge on two bills. HB 1036 would allow homeowners to vote to dissolve their community association, specifically require HOAs to share financial records and ban them from retaliating against homeowners. They would also ban HOAs from foreclosing on homes for unpaid fines and fees.
I had an 80-year-old woman crying, 80 years old, saying she have nowhere to go, and they are trying to take her home for assessment fees. That should never happen in Georgia. Her home is paid for.
The other bill, HB 1035, would apply to all homeowners. Even if you don't live in an HOA, it ensures a home cannot be taken for unpaid utilities, HOA fees, or other non-tax bills.
You had dropped a couple bills regarding HOAs in the past. What makes this year different?
The number of people that are being impacted. I don't know how lawmakers can bury their head in the sand when people are hurting.
Back here on the coast, organizers in Savannah are joining a nationwide protest over recent ICE raids and reported civilian deaths tied to the federal operations in Minnesota. A grassroots effort called the National Shutdown is asking folks nationwide to skip work, school, and shopping for a day. They are planning a protest tomorrow in Forsyth Park. And we should also note that students at Georgia Southern Savannah campus are actually walking out right now over the recent ICE raids as well. Our Cam McCann is on scene, and he will have the latest on that coming up in Welcome to Our Community at 3 o'clock right here on WTOC. Turning now to national news. Right now, the U.S. Senate is scrambling to avoid a partial government shutdown. The deadline for that funding deal is midnight tonight. But even if something were to come together, the money still might not go through. Reed Binion explains what that partial shutdown would look like.
We're working on that right now. I think we're getting close.
President Donald Trump expressing hope for a government funding deal ahead of the Friday deadline to avert a shutdown. Senate leaders reached a deal to fund critical agencies through September, but the agreement only provides temporary funding for the Department of Homeland Security, which includes Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Instead, funding DHS for 2 weeks while the parties debate broader reforms for ICE.
We need to rein in ICE and end the violence.
Democrats want DHS funding to come with changes to ICE tactics, including tightening the use of warrants, ending roving patrols, making ICE agents remove masks and wear body cameras, and enforcing a code of conduct comparable to force policies for state and local law enforcement. Even if the Senate votes Friday, final passage could be delayed till Monday, when the House of Representatives returns from recess. That makes a partial government shutdown likely this weekend, less than 3 months after the end of a record-long full shutdown. Several agencies have already been fully funded for the rest of the year, so this shutdown would look different. For example, there wouldn't be a risk of tens of millions of people losing SNAP benefits, but it could have an impact on air travel, and federal workers could miss paychecks. Lawmakers on both sides of the aisle are hoping that won't happen.
There's a lot of earnest work going on in a bipartisan way to try to avert a shutdown.
I'm Reed Binion reporting.
In travel news, if you're flying this weekend, you might want to check your driver's license first, because starting Sunday, if you don't have one of those real ID licenses or a passport, it's going to cost you extra to get on the plane. About 150,000 people each day go through TSA checkpoints without that real ID license. CBS's Chris Van Cleve reports.
When Raquel Washington flew to Las Vegas for her birthday in November, the New Jersey resident didn't have a real ID when she got to TSA.
They made it pretty easy for us to come through without our real ID. I think they just scan our fingerprints pretty much just to determine who we are.
But the next time she flies, she may have to pay the TSA $45 as part of the agency's new TSA Confirm ID program launching Sunday. Passengers with non-compliant forms of identification must go to a TSA website, sign up, and pay the fee before they can access security. But that fee is only good for 10 days.
If I don't have a real ID and I don't pay this fee, will I be turned away at the checkpoint?
You could be in risk of not making your flight.
TSA Executive Administrator for Security Operations, Steve Lawrence.
Why is it necessary to charge somebody $45 for this?
Absolutely. We want to make sure that the system is modernized. We want to make sure that we're covering down on the latest technology. We're also ensuring that in this situation, this cost is not bared by the taxpayers. This cost is bared by the individual that doesn't have a real ID-compliant driver's license.
New signage with a QR code is going up at airport checkpoints. Flyers can pay on the spot at the airport if necessary. After years of delays, the TSA began requiring flyers to show a real ID, typically a driver's license with a star like this, or other approved forms of identification like a passport, military, or tribal ID last May.
94% of flyers have a compliant ID. TSA says they shouldn't see anything different. But for folks that have paid this fee, they advise allotting 15 to 30 minutes to get through security, more if you're going to do it at the airport on the spot. This is a clear effort to push people to get their real IDs as soon as possible. Chris Van Cleve, CBS News, Phoenix.
All right, well, before we sign off this afternoon, we did want to send you into the weekend on a positive note because more than 1,000 volunteers are out right now spreading the joy of reading and putting books into the hands of children across our communities. United Way of the Coastal Empire's Read United Day is happening right now. Volunteers have headed out into elementary classrooms across the Coastal Empire to read aloud to pre-K through second grade students. Each classroom will also receive a brand new book as well. Organizers say the effort is expected to reach more than 20,000 children, helping build early literacy and a lifelong love of reading. Today's readers included many members of the WTOC staff. As you can see, Mike Sela right there, Aaron Dixon, Joe Hennessy, a lot of our morning crews. It's something our team absolutely loves to do every single year. All right, well, coming up in 15 minutes right here on WTOC, it's this week's episode of Governing Georgia, where each week we break down the latest bills and proposals moving through the Georgia Capitol and explain what they mean for you, your family, and your community. You can catch that again in 15 minutes right here on WTOC Plus and the WTOC Facebook page. And with that, we are going to sign off because I've got to change over these graphics for Governing Georgia coming up in just a few. Would like to thank you all for watching. And for the next 10-15 minutes, here's Local News Live.